Imagine living 20 plus years of your life and being sure, being convinced that Republicans are racist, right? Think about that. If you had asked 7 years ago, Candace Owens would have thought every single person in this room was a racist, simply because they are Republican, simply because they are conservative. Do you know what it's like when one day someone just says, actually, no, it's the exact opposite? You go through real cognitive dissonance. I remember falling down the hole and asking myself if I was crazy. I thought for a while I was crazy as I was going on these websites to read different perspectives and realizing that people that I thought were hideous, awful, backwards human beings were actually not. That they had just been libeled and smeared for a very long time. And by the way, when I say that Republicans and conservatives are being libeled and smeared, I'm not talking about just the mainstream media. More importantly, I'm talking about the education system. I didn't invent the idea in my head. I didn't come up with that idea by myself that conservatives are racist. I didn't come up with the idea that Republicans are racist by myself. I was actively taught it in the school systems. Think about that for a second. You send your kids off to school for 6 hours a day, and you don't question it. You just think, of course, my kids are at school. What could possibly be wrong? This is where they should be, right? My kids are learning something. I grew up and I didn't even realize that I was existing under a system of propaganda for 6 hours that was training me to be a liberal, that was training me to veer towards leftism. Yeah. And it was pretty bad. It wasn't what it is today. It was pretty bad when I was in school, now that I look back in the retrospect, but it wasn't, you're either with us or against us. Now I look back and I think I was brainwashed, but you have no idea what the kids that are in school today are learning and what they are going through. If it was bad when I was growing up, these kids have no chance. When you start talking about the fact that today I trended on Twitter for 18 hours. I was the #1 trend today on Twitter. Do you want to know why? Because I said using they as a pronoun to describe an individual person is not proper English. That was the tweet. 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been controversial, right? That would have been common sense. I mean, when I was in school, you had to learn pronouns, he, she, it, the singular pronouns, right? When you're describing a subject. 5 years later, and you're considered a bigot, and you can trend for 18 hours, and you can receive 50,000 tweets from people that are angry because you are a hateful bigot, because you refuse to acknowledge that there are non-binary babies. What the heck are we talking about in this country anymore? And it's curious because every time I think that we've gotten to the bottom of their crazy, they unlock another basement, right? Right? And you think they're joking, right? You go, that's probably not going to pick up and trend. Oh, it's going to pick up and trend. Not only they're going to put it in the school systems. When we talk about critical race theory, do you understand what we are talking? We are talking about the reintroduction of segregation under the guise of diversity in the school systems. They're actively teaching children to judge one another based on the color of their skin. That is what's happening in America today. And we know who's behind it. We know the Democrats are behind this. We know that they support this stuff. We know at the end of the day that their end goal is to destroy America and turn it into a socialist country, right? If you ask me, I think if you look even behind the Democrats and you go, why would you want to destroy your own country? You've got China right behind them, right? You've got China that has taken so much control over so many things that are happening in this country, the media, the politicians, Hollywood, money is behind a lot of these institutions. But now the target seems to be specifically children. Children right now in this country are not safe in classrooms. The very definition of racism is looking at somebody, looking at the color of their skin and assigning a bunch of attributes to them. That means the concept of white privilege is racist. The concept of black oppression is racist. To look at somebody and say, because you are black, you are oppressed, and to look at somebody and say, because you are white, you are privileged, is racism. And so I ask myself when I hear that, it's interesting because I have a biracial son. Is he half oppressed or half privileged? I'm probably going to tell him just go with it. Just say you're whatever, just say oppressed, go with oppressed. It'll be easier for you. Color the black box on your SATs. It'll be easier for you. And there is this remarkable thing happening where there's been a mass silencing. I get so many questions from parents saying, what can I do? What can I do? What can I possibly do? I don't want my kid to be singled out by these professors. I don't want my child to be singled out by the teachers. I have a lady that I used to babysit for who lives in Manhattan who sends her daughter to a $50,000 a year high school. $50,000 times 2 children is $100,000 a year that she is paying to send her child to a private school in New York. I spoke to her daughter, she's 16 years old, and she told me that on the first day of school, mind you this is a Jewish family, on the first day of school, they're showed where the safe space is. Okay? The safe space. 16 years old. If you seem to be safe in a space, they have that. Then they have to take a multicultural class, and they make the kids go around the room, and if you have white skin, you have to say out loud why you feel bad about your privilege. You're paying $100,000 so that people can abuse your child. Wow. That has got to be the scam of the century. Then her daughter tells me that during Black History Month, I couldn't believe this. During Black History Month, they're all invited to an auditorium. The whole school is invited to the auditorium. So imagine a scenario like this, where the whole school is sitting in the audience and they invite everyone who is black to come onto the stage and to let out their feelings and to scream at them. And she says they get on stage and they say, you don't understand what it's like for me as a black person in this country, what your privilege does to me and how it destroys me. Can you imagine paying $100,000 a year for your child because the basis of their skin has to sit in an auditorium and be lambasted by people of the opposite color skin? Can you imagine that? And so parents say, well, what can I do? I say to her, why are you sending your child to this school? Well, it's the best school, it's one of the best schools in New York, and I just want her to get through, keep her head down, and I want her to, get into a good college and live in New York forever, and this is just the way things are. Are you crazy? I asked her, are you crazy? People that are asking me what you can do, it's your child. The government should not be raising your children. It's that simple. And people say, Candace, it's not that simple. I gotta go to work. It is that simple, okay? There should be nothing in the way of you stopping your child from being mentally abused, okay? That is what is happening inside the school systems today. Not only that, but our child also has to sit behind a plexiglass with a mask on their face. What it does to my heart, by the way, when I see these children, itty-bitty 2-year-old toddlers, walking around with a mask on their face. Think about the psychological trauma of that. Think about the fact that right now in America, there are children that believe that that is normal because they've never seen anything different. There are children that believe it's normal to ask their parents where their mask is because they've never seen anything different.